on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Free at last! Free at last! Thanks, Almighty!
You're listening to the Alan Aury Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now, 559-899-1550.
Hey, welcome to Alan Aury No Retreat. I'm old Alan Aury, so honored and humbled as always. And I know I do the same opening saying I'm honored and humbled, but dadgummit, every time I do this show, I am honored and humbled to have you with us today. I'm having the most fun I ever have in my life, especially here on Free for All Fridays in our beloved Fresno, when I get to sit in most Fridays with the great Bullet Bob Leone, the radio legend and baseball historian. Welcome, Rapid Robert.
Thank you, Hoss. Very, very good to be here.
Great to be here.
I don't know much about that legend thing. I was such a legend in radio. I was in insurance for 45 years, so I don't know if that says how good I was
well,
in radio.
It had nothing to do with your ability. You said, hey, I got to make some more money.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, radio is, you got to love it. You get a family, and it's time to, you went on, that's, but folks, we got so much to go over, so many important things. But in the spirit of January 6th being exalted above inflation and the war of Ukraine, and out of control crime, we're going to open this show with a story about Louie song. Being inspired. Well, Liz Cheney inspired me. And, with everything going on, you're going to do the January 6th thing to convince people that's the most important issue in their life right now. Not that you can't eat, you're starving to death, you can't drive your car, your country's being invaded by people you don't even know, and you've got a war going that could turn into World War III. But by all means, let's do a prime time January 6th thing to show that Trump attacked democracy. And if you don't keep the Mr. Orange Man in a cage and put him in the Fresno Zoo where he belongs, that democracy is over with in America. So, Louie, on this show, we've talked about it. That was a big song on our ear.
Yeah, very big song.
Remember, I didn't know any of the other words, but when it hit Louie, Louie,
the other word.
Well, I did a little research on it. And this is not Scoop Johnson research, although Scoop does a great job.
Awesome.
This is stuff that's there for you to find out. Apparently, when this thing came out in the late 50s, Louie by the Kings, it caused a stir because you couldn't understand what was going on. So the rumor started there was something very, very filthy. And somehow that got translated. It was also a way of communicating to communists. I guess the kinsmen were rumored to be communists, so this was
the secret code.
This is for real, man. This is how crazy you can get. And the government's never wrong, by the way. You got to believe the government. Well, the FBI got involved because apparently there was an uprising with parents because there was a spate of kids in like the 5th, 6th grade passing notes, giving their version of what was in Louie.
Oh, okay.
And parents got very concerned. So the FBI went in and investigated. They took the recording and they examined it for like 6 months. And they came out with the report.
Your tax dollars at work.
They came out with the report that they played it. And the quote from the FBI was played forward and backwards, in regular and backwards, through any possible way you could play it to decipher there was some code in there, that any way you played it, it was completely unintelligible. They couldn't understand it.
Even in its natural.
So don't try, folks, if the FBI and all their technology. And then they went to the guy. Why they didn't do that at the beginning, I don't know. And in fact, I don't even think they ever did. They'd go to the guy who sang the song.
Or who wrote it. I mean,
yeah, and I forget the fellow's name. I didn't take down the note. I didn't think it was. I didn't know if I was going to open with this, but I just had to. It's Free for All Friday. But the guy who wrote it said he sang the song. I guess they did it in 1 or 2 takes, and he had braces on. Newly braces. Back in those days, those braces really filled up your mouth. Yeah, remember those days?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a pound of food caught in there, man. You
eat on that for days.
Oh man, remember that in high school? You'd be across from somebody some kid just got braces, and there'd like beans caught in there and salad, and they'd be trying to talk, and you're like, oh my gosh, buddy, dude. But he said it it just distorted everything he said. Now, he didn't come forth with what the words were, because I guess it's probably a little bit of, it's become a folk legend of the Lou. Anyway, so in the spirit of that, okay, speaking of, oh, wait, the Pope is sidelined. He's on the disabled list. You see that?
I saw that just a few minutes ago. I didn't realize. Was he out playing soccer and hurt himself, or what was he doing?
I don't know. And I'd have a lot of Catholic friends that are going to get on me. But listen, you got to be able to make a few Pope jokes as long as you have lines. You don't cross the line. I mean, hey, I'm Protestant. You can make some Billy Graham jokes. I'm not going to, just don't cross the line. And I'm not joking here when I say this. I think, the Pope, he missed a golden opportunity. He was going to go to Africa.
Okay.
You got a messed up knee, and I know how painful that can be. I got a blown out knee. When I tried to scramble with my blazing 5.2 speed in the 40 at the University of Washington.
That's a whole different story.
But man, don't you just, hey, stop doing. I'm going to wrap that sucker up, even if I have to go in crutches. I'm going to go to Africa. And I'm going to go. I'm going to withstand the pain. Don't you think you missed an opportunity to be?
Well, I suppose so. Obviously, he feels badly that he can't go, but I wonder what his doctor said. If they'd said, let's put some ice on that, keep it elevated, and come back in the morning, and then you can take your trip.
Now, I'm not trying to stir up a Pope controversy here. I'm not trying to be a doo-doo stirrer here.
We don't need that.
No, but I can't help but say, Pope John Paul in our era. I mean, the guy that pretty much helped bring down the Soviet Union along with Reagan. Pope in Poland, Pope John Paul, I mean, he was a warrior. He was basically on his deathbed, and he was giving those speeches for freedom. And here's the time, and I'm just, oh boy, am I going to have any audience left at all? I've alienated.
I'm just trying to.
I don't have a career left. I don't have a career left. China's already canceled me from all the major studios.
I just wonder how you're going to get out of this one.
Well, I got all the Well, I'm not going after Catholic religion at all. I'm just saying the Pope should toughen up. Come on, Pope. Get out there on the field. Come on. You call yourself a Pope. Look at you. You're there hurting your knee. Come on. Get out there. You got a game to play.
Yeah.
Pope needs a little coaching.
Be a hockey player. Come on.
There's got to be a bishop running around the Vatican that he listens to that can run in there and say, come on, Pope. Let's go. Let's go to Africa. Wrap that supper, rub some dirt on that knee. Let's get on the plane. Let's get over to Zaire and motivate these people to have some hope in this crazy world. You're the Pope of hope. You are.
I think.
But no,
he's got
a bunch of people like Biden running around going, can I bring you an aspirin? Have I been iced that? If you trade Relief Factor off of Fox News, you can order it. It's supposed to help that knee.
Get a MyPillow, stuff it under your leg, and elevate it.
Yes, get a little Mike Lindell loafers, those slippers. He's selling the slippers now. $50 a pair for slippers. Put some of that on the Pope's feet, wrap it up, put a little Relief Factor, get a MyPillow.
Get rid of those sandals.
And get off to the Congo, man. Get to the Congo. Give that speech. It'd be a great optic. Come on, Pope. Anyway, I'm just kidding, my Catholic friends. Come on. I'm just kidding. Golly. Oh gosh, I'm in so much trouble.
You're not. You're probably not on the high list right now.
Oh my goodness, I could just imagine. I see my phone. It's already
YouTube's going to take you off again if you keep that stuff up.
Well, you ready to go to hell, Aury? You just got a one-way ticket there today. We'll be seeing me there. Okay. Where do we got to go with this January 6th? So the inside the camp of Liz Cheney, not her official spokesperson, but inside the camp, I think it was one of the senators or congressmen that are on this. Well, it's in the House, so it had to be a House representative. Said it's going to be like when we're talking about what was going to happen here, this thing's going to unfold over 6 installments, a series, if you will. And they hired a Hollywood producer to produce it. And this guy had the beautiful, wondrous intellect to say, it's going to be like a Netflix series. And I watched it last night.
We're supposed to take this seriously, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And
I didn't see it. I admittedly, I did not see it. I had something going on with my grandson, so we were playing soccer. So
thought you were like clipping your toenails. You
No.
had something important. Well, that's probably more important than watching this thing. I did. I watched it.
Oh, okay. And your critique of it is what?
It is just like a Netflix series. Have you seen Netflix series lately? Poor story, no plots, horrible acting, horrible directing. Music is like something you would get at a freshman, jug band contest. And no plots, it's just horribly executed. And you just see it for what it is, desperation. And you see a Democratic Party that knows what awaits them in November, a literal political bloodbath, unless the Republicans go and do something stupid and snatch feet out of the jaws of victory.
Which
And
is possible.
it's so you have the Democratic desperation fueled by Liz Cheney's pure hate for Donald Trump. And on this show last week, Bobby, we talked about how she hated Trump from the moment he opened his mouth against Cheney and Bush.
Right.
And Trump was horrible. What do you think about this? Sixth thing?
I guess it's a firm grasp of the obvious for me. They hate Trump so much. And Liz Cheney has really got a vendetta against this guy. Really has a vendetta. They hate this guy so much. They want to see him completely, totally out of the picture. Don't give him a thought. And they're trying to make sure that happens with this January 6th thing. But there's really such a deep-rooted hatred for this man. Don't forget, they've already done the impeachments.
Mm-hmm.
While he was
Failed twice.
While he was in office.
Impeached twice.
While he was in office.
Yeah.
Now they've got the January 6th issue. And they're going to keep moving and going until this guy is gone, out of the picture, dead and buried. That they're trying to convince the rest of the country how bad this guy is. And it's just a political vendetta against Trump. And look, Trump, he's his own guy, obviously, but as far as I'm concerned, the guy, takes 2 steps forward and 3 steps back.
He's his own worst enemy.
Yeah, he steps on his tail. He steps on his tail more than not. I'm not a real big fan of his and the way he does things, although he was successful, I think, on a number of fronts as a president. But they just hate this guy so much, and that's a tough word to use. Hate. They do.
I agree with you, and I think it's obvious with this January 6th, where you got 3 of the top networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS, agreeing to give 2 full hours in prime time to this political vendetta, this political witch hunt, which, under the guise, it's just outright personal hate,
yeah,
dressed up or marketed as protecting democracy. The democracy is at stake here, and they never will go into details exactly what that means.
Well, Liz Cheney said it again last night. He's a threat to democracy.
But they never hey, can you give us a specifically mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
It was a riot. Riots are bad. It's a riot that get out of control. An insurrection, they called it an armed insurrection. There was no guns confiscated there. The only gun used was by a Capitol Hill policeman to shoot a rioter, Ashley Babbitt, dead. He never was brought accountable to that, or we were told why the reasons, or if the reasons were warranted. She was unarmed. He shot through a window, could barely see anybody. A guy who's had a history of being very careless with firearms. They said 5 in this thing last night that during this riot, that the rioters killed 5 policemen, Capitol Police, which is an absolute lie. And and you go and you see how they spin this thing when they had the Hollywood production.
Exactly. I was going to mention that to you. What were your thoughts about that? Because
I told the people yesterday.
Go ahead.
I told them exactly what was going to happen, because it's an optic trick of they're going to bring the camera in real tight, real close, and they're going to move that camera, and they're going to show, and it's just going to look like absolute insane craziness. And there was aspects of that were. You pull back to a full shot, and like I said, it looked more like a AARP convention. A bunch of old farts out there, American flags.
This is our last chance.
You have like 100,000 people. Then you have 2,000 knucklehead, knothead, boneheads that decide they're going to crash in. The riot goes into the Capitol. You have the Capitol Police opening the doors for them. They occupy the Capitol. You had some other knuckleheads say some things like hang Pence, Mike Pence, and Pelosi, this and that. Not excusing this for one second. But you call that an armed insurrection, yet the summer of 2020, when 27 people were killed, David Dorn shot dead trying to protect his business. You have 450 acts of riots and violence, several $1 billion worth of property damage, and that is not an insurrection. That
it's a peaceful protest.
Yeah, that's what got Jack Del Rio, the coach of
right.
Up in Arms. He said, "Look, I'm all up for doing a close examination of January 6th, but where is that same close examination of January 2000?" So my question to you, if the Republicans take the House, do you think they should do a deep dive into 2020? Who knew what when? Did Kamala Harris saying, bail out, if you go and you burn things down and hurt people, I'll help bail you out. Did that incite violence? They're saying that by Trump saying, go down and peacefully make your voices be heard, incited that riot. Can they make that case? Should they do that, or should they say, hey, we're taking control, the public's tired of it, they're worn out, let's move on?
I think they should investigate it. You had federal buildings in Seattle that were torched, not only local police department headquarters, but federal courthouse, which obviously is a major crime. I think they need to investigate some of this stuff. They just need to find out who the perpetrators were. And I think, and I know what you're going to say. They probably already know who that is, who those folks were. But yeah, I think they need to go after them, and if crimes were committed, they need to prosecute.
And let me ask you, so I want to put this on the table as a question, and really put it on the table nonpartisanly. I know I say this a lot, but I'm an independent, and I really am. I've been my whole life. Bobby, you know me. I'm a little different bird. I never joined a fraternity in college. In high school, didn't run around with big crowds. Bobby was a friend. I had a few other friends, but I didn't run in a big group that just, I felt uncomfortable. I feel more comfortable now, but I was never, to be part of a club, and you had to do what the club said, or you weren't a good club member. Or like in fraternities, if you didn't go fight the other fraternity when one of your fraternity members was a knucklehead and should have got his butt kicked, but because he's in your fraternity, you're going to go fight these other people that you have nothing against because your fellow brother there at the fraternity was a knucklehead.
Yeah.
That never made sense to me. Make him go over there and apologize. That's how you be a good fraternity, But so I put this on the table, purely nonpartisan, just as a question. Would you not want to know, Republican, Democrat, left, right, gender, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just if the truth really matters, and having the whole truth, everything in its totality, especially the very salient, important points that could have maybe stopped the tragedy of January 6th, wouldn't you want it on the table to be examined? And by that, I mean this particular point. Nancy Pelosi was offered by the president to bring in the National Guard. The Mayor Bowser of Washington, D.C., was offered by the president early on the National Guard. The FBI warned Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer that you have these groups coming in, probably a couple of thousand of them, Proud Boys and Oath Keepers here. We've picked up some chatter, and they're coming here, and something bad could probably happen. The rest of the folks are all right, but you got to watch these folks. You need to do something and up the security. They did nothing. Why? Don't you want to know why? Why isn't Nancy Pelosi made to answer that question? Why are the two congressmen who would have asked that question kicked off the committee or not allowed onto the committee? And you get, Cryan and Kinzinger in there and Liz Cheney. Bobby, what's your answer to that? Why wouldn't you want to know that?
Exactly. Well, that was my previous point. These weren't peaceful demonstrations, obviously, but wouldn't you want to know who the ringleaders were to get down to learn the facts And if there were crimes committed, to prosecute these individuals with as much fervor as the January 6th committee is doing with the riots right now, or the rioters right now. With as much energy and as much fervor as they're putting toward that, wouldn't you want to know what happened in the summer of 2020?
Yes, on that, but on this January 6th, absolutely I would. But this is a situation I'm asking. She was warned. She had the authority to call out the National Guard. She was told by the FBI there's going to be trouble, yet they did nothing. And they blamed Trump for not putting in the National Guard. Could you be left thinking maybe they wanted something to happen?
Well,
maybe they did. They wanted these crazy people to come in and do what they did in order to take political advantage. Why would you not follow the direction of FBI?
I wouldn't put anything past them.
Why
now,
wouldn't you?
There was another.
It wasn't just. It was the FBI telling them.
Yeah.
You need to reinforce this Capitol. Don't just leave the Capitol Police out there alone. Why wasn't she brought on? And her and the mayor say, why did you both say, no, we got this?
Yeah.
We think the Capitol Police can do this.
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that.
Well,
but certainly,
that's what
inquiring minds would want to know.
Well, it's what ticks a lot of people off.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why I think this thing could backfire on them big time.
There was also, and I don't want to. I'm not a big conspiracy theorist guy, but I saw some videos of an individual, and this has been a couple of months ago, who allegedly was a plant in the group that was going to go to the Capitol, and he's there firing everybody up, and he was identified. And I can't remember the gentleman's name, but supposedly he was a plant.
The tall guy in the red hat.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
You remember? Did you see that?
Why wasn't he called?
Yeah,
before
exactly.
the committee?
Because nobody knew this guy, and all of a sudden he shows up, and he's now the big barnstormer. He's going to lead all these people down Pennsylvania Avenue,
and they start chanting "Fed."
Yeah,
that this guy's a federal agent.
They figured he might be, but. Why wasn't this investigated?
They think
there's just so much.
See, Liz Cheney's so full of hate. You're absolutely right.
She really is.
She's so, and I think a lot of these folks, and you get some folks on the right as well that feel this way. They hate more individuals and ideologies more than they love their country and love their own ideas and ideologies. Liz Cheney hates Trump more than she loves democracy. It's exactly the opposite. If you saw what you're doing, it's obvious what you're trying to do. Because if you did digging into this family, you understand. They are an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth family. This Dick Cheney, when he came out when I was mayor, and I haven't said this before, but I'm going, one of the rudest individuals I've ever been around in my life.
Yeah.
An arrogant individual, and I'm not passing judgment on him. That's God to judge him. But here in his visit to Fresno, and from what people I know who know him, and I supported him. I voted for him and Bush. I have to separate these personal qualities from policy. Like I tell you, got to separate policy from personality with Trump, policy and personality from Clinton. Clinton and Gingrich did some good things. You got to take that out there if you care about America, if you really care about moving forward. And Dick Cheney was one of those guys. It's like, the mafia. You go after them, they're not going to forget. They're just like that. There's that, and when Trump went off on Bush, the worst president ever, and went after Cheney, worst vice president consistently, number one agenda for Liz Cheney was if she ever got a chance to get this guy, they were going to get him.
And it's blatantly obvious in all of her actions.
Exactly. And I draw this, and I believe it as sure as I'm sitting here. I don't have empirical proof of it. But George W. Bush, I supported him completely. He and I became pretty darn good friends. I was invited to the White House for Christmas, spent a lot of alone time with him at one time, and until things were getting tough, I supported him. But I'll tell you right now, the number one reason I feel he went into Iraq is because Saddam Hussein, during the first Gulf War, tried to assassinate his dad. Now, the assassination plot was foiled by the U.S. intelligence, but Saddam Hussein got real close. Right then, Bush, if he had a chance, said, I'm going to get the guy who tried to kill my daddy.
Mm-hmm.
The family is so strong. Well, he got his chance. So people are going, wait a minute. All those terrorists 9/11 came from Saudi Arabia. Why are we attacking Iraq? Why we and began this whole case like January 6th to blame Iraq. That if we go into Iraq, we're going to, and the whole thing was he had his chance now because he wanted his dad during the first Desert Storm to keep going into Baghdad and take Hussein out then. His dad chose not to.
Stopped you.
And people say, well, Arthur, that's a wild conspiracy. I believe it with all my heart. Because you think when people become presidents or congressmen that they stop being people and they lose their emotions and they lose their what makes them human. And nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, it's kind of exacerbated because then you have the power, in many cases, to act out your revenge. And if you're of that type, and that's what we're seeing with Liz Cheney, a woman determined, not about, see, and it's just terrible to watch. And I would ask this, we can go to break. When that happens, you think, and you said you hope if the Republicans take over that they're going to do a deep dive into the 2020 riots, the Summer of Love, as the mayor of Seattle likes to. Will the networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS, will they give 2 hours?
No.
Of prime time?
No.
Over 6 episodes, so you got what, 12?
No,
you got 16.
It may end up like the Kavanaugh story on page 20 of the New York Times.
That I want to talk to when we come back from break. I want to talk about that.
Okay.
This is Alan Autry. Yeah, I'm torn, but I lean your way. That I hope they do. Now, I hope they don't go into a bunch of other aspects of payback.
We also
but that
have
one's
Laura on the
legitimate.
line.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Who's on one?
Laura. I think that's one they probably have a moral responsibility. I agree with you.
Well,
because it affected so many people, and it's just the Democrats have just forgotten about it.
I mean, let's go back. Remember when we were watching this thing happen? We were sitting there in front of our TV, and I'm thinking, how's this happening? What's going on?
Stop it.
Well, yeah. Why aren't the police in there, dealing with these yo-yos? And okay, one night, it's an immediate visceral reaction. But over the course of how many months this went on, and I'm looking every night, I'm going, this is crazy.
Yep.
This is like a third world country.
Yep.
Out here, and then when they go in Seattle and set up their own little enclave within the city, and they're still destroying federal buildings, federal courthouse, police buildings, and nothing's happening. There's nobody saying, hey, this must stop now, and we're going to send in these troops here and get it done, or whatever you have to do.
Do you remember that back in the day, the comic books, the Superman comics, you know how big they were. But there was one series called Bizarro World where everything was the opposite. They went to another planet. The planet wasn't round; it was square. People walked backwards instead of forward, and good was bad.
It's like a Seinfeld episode.
And bad was good. It was really interesting.
Blue was green. And
it was called Bizarro World.
Red was yellow, and
we're kind of living in a little bizarro world. Here.
Definitely.
It was a really unique. I remember that series really caught my attention. Oh my! Oh boy! Now you hear Franklin Roosevelt.
My dad loved that.
Oh gosh, Mom did.
One
They
minute?
all did.
My dad was a Roosevelt Democrat. He called him Roosevelt instead of Roosevelt.
But today it would be the only thing we have to fear is fear itself and Joe Biden. Look at Roosevelt, man. He couldn't walk. He went everywhere. Come on, Pope.
Yeah. Well, when he at the Yalta conference, there's that famous picture of Churchill,
30 seconds.
and Stalin sitting there, and he's draped in a blanket because the guy was dying. He was in bad shape.
That picture. Where's Waldo?
Yeah.
Who's the mass murderer in this picture? Can you pick out the mass murderer?
The only guy. I'll take the guy with the mustache. I'll take him.
He wiped
10 seconds?
all of his enemies. He killed. I mean, his friends.
Yeah. Oh, a real sweetheart of a guy. He went for person of the decade.
What them communists do. They control.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now. 559-899-1550.
One of the greatest rock songs ever made right there, man. Love it. All right, we're back with Alan Autry, No Retreat, with Bullet Bob Leone, the man who should have his own show, but he's honoring us by being on this one.
And more fun having talking to you and listening to your folks call in.
I tell you, have more fun than a pig, and you know what? Laura on the phone comments on the January 6th documentary produced by Joseph Goebbels and the Democratic Party. Welcome, Laura.
Hello. I ended up watching the rerun of it last night because I had more important things to do, like watch regular TV.
And wash your hair.
And this is going to blow up in their face so bad.
Oh, yes.
I mean, these people need to understand. Okay, I do not like Donald Trump.
I know.
All.
And you have a little bit of bone to pick with Ron DeSatan as well.
All of these media people, to the Democrats, to Liz Cheney, y'all need to sit down and watch the movie Beetlejuice. Keep saying his name, he's going to keep showing up. If you want him to go away, stop talking about him.
I love that. He's like Beetlejuice. They don't get it, do they? They don't get it. The orange man cometh. He's you just let him go away. He's fading. Even folks, the governor of Virginia said, stay away a little bit, Mr. President. Now Herschel Walker's saying go away a little bit. He still's got some juice, no pun intended.
Who do you think has made who feeds this beast?
Oh,
it's this.
He's
it's
gonna.
all of this.
They just.
I learned a long time ago. If you don't want mean girls to bother you, ignore them.
They just launched him just like SpaceX on that thing. They're launching him back. His popularity is going to soar.
I mean, it's the most. It is just asinine. It's like. Okay, the way that I view this with Liz Cheney and Adam Schiff, especially sitting there with his big moon pie face.
You mean Mr. Charisma?
Oh my gosh! Imagine a murder suspect, okay, and the prosecution is the victim's family. I mean, you don't get any more subjective than that.
You just don't. And Laura, let me ask you this. It's kind of a rhetorical question, but it's not. I really want to spend a little time talking about this. Let me make the preface with a statement, and then let me just point to a couple of points for you to respond to, you and Bullet Bob and folks out there. How stinking dumb do they think the American public is? That they can show this documentary, show half a tweet, but you leave off the other part of the tweet, which says love and peace. You show him saying, now go down to the Capitol and make your voices heard. You cut it off and you leave out in a peaceful way, go make your voices heard. You purposely leave that out. You edited this stuff to try to brainwash and bamboozle the American public. How much of a low regard do you think they have of the American people in terms of our collective intelligence, to think that they could actually influence someone with that stuff that, as you said, all people see right through it, especially the mechanic down on Blackstone at the body shop, of which those people think is dumb because he quit high school to take care of his family, that has more wisdom and common sense in his little grease-covered finger than you have in your squeaky clean office in Congress.
Well, in their defense, 1.4 million people who are now eligible to vote ate Tide Pods on TikTok.
Scary.
All right, you're starting to make a point here.
That's scary.
After that little tirade of mine, I just got
manuals in cars explaining how to change valves and change fluids. Now we tell people not to drink the battery acid. So
you do have a point.
Yeah.
Do you talk to the public a whole lot, Alan? Because I do, and let me tell you, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. It really is.
Well,
there is common sense is a very, very, very rare flower that grows in very few gardens today. So they're not necessarily targeting the people with a brain. They're targeting the Tide Pod crowd.
I got you. And then doing everything they can to get them registered and out to vote. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, they're probably going to need a helper monkey to get them in there. But,
all right. It's Free for All Friday. I want to be made happy. I want to be joyous. Give me something to feel good about with this. Because here's the thing. And I'm going to get in trouble for this. I'm going to get in trouble for this.
They're going to end up standing there. It's going to be Al Capone's little thing all over again. It's going to be a big show, and nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to go anywhere, and everybody's just going to stand there looking stupid.
Okay.
That's what's going to happen.
Okay, well, I got you on the line. We just have a few more minutes left in Free for All Friday. I want to transition over to, not that transition, to the Ukraine war. We talked about this. There's more chance of me naming, my next kid, if I ever had it, Usama, as there is of Ukraine winning this war against Russia. It was going to eventually, quicker rather than later, turn into a war of attrition and an artillery war. That's what we have now in the East. Putin came in, gave them a chance to put down their arms, went into Kiev, 40-mile-long convoy, all of that stuff. They didn't put down the arms. They fought hard. So he retreated from that. Knew an option A, B, C, D. He had it. May be crazy and insane, but he's not dumb. Now he sends a rocket every now and then over to Kiev to just let people know, hey, we can reach you at any time, okay? Comes back to the East, where you and I both said was his plan anyway, to solidify what they had there in Crimea, in Donbass, with the 36,000 separatists there. He already had a Russian army basically there. Now has gone to work. Mariupol fell. Now it looks like Severodonetsk. I'm murdering that name, but that's the next strategic city fighting. The Ukrainians are fighting hard, no doubt about it, but one by one, they're falling, and it's become, even Zelensky came out and said, look, it's a war of artillery right now, and we're vastly outnumbered 15-1 in this. And we said all along, just by the sheer numbers, Russians have more people, they have more artillery. That's where the war's being fought now. My question to you, you now have Germany and France. Stolz, what's his name? Olaf Schmatz. My German is not up to par. And you have Macron over there. You got France and Germany calling for peace talks. Two of the top countries there in terms of power, saying you all need to get to the peace table, yet the United States and Biden has remained silent. Why? Why isn't Biden calling for peace along with Germany and France right now? Why is he continuing to perpetuate the carnage?
Well, there's a variety of reasons. I mean, number one, we all know that Biden isn't running this. This is Blinken running this. Blinken and Austin are making money hand over fist, number one.
There you go.
Because the longer this continues, the more Pine Island Capital's subsidiaries are going to be sending over virtual reality training for different weapons. Lockheed Martin is making a fortune. Raytheon is making a fortune. I mean, Lockheed Martin just announced they're making 5,000 javelins for Ukraine. So you have all of that to factor in. Then you also have to consider his poll numbers are in the toilet, literally in the toilet. And anything that he can use to distract, to use as an excuse for the situation that we find ourselves in this country, I mean, you know as well as I do, anything that he can lay at the feet of the Ukraine war or Russia, he's going to, has since day one of this. And I do not see Putin going to the negotiating table at this point, because there's really very little left for him to negotiate on.
But here's my point.
All he has to do is take Odessa, and he's going to have all of those Black Sea ports. End of story.
But wouldn't you want, as president, let me ask you this, though. I hear you. I hear your strategy, and I agree with it. My point being, as Americans, as our leader, you would want to pick peace first if you could. Let's accept that all that's going to happen. You're going to be the president while France and Germany and pretty much all of Western Europe are going to calling for peace, and you're going to be the one outlier, the one crazy that say, no, I want to see people continue to get slaughtered. Let me ask Bullet Bob here on that. Hang on the line, Laura, if you could. What's your response after this? But your take on this. Is it smart? Because Laura pointed this out. Let's just speak politically, because that's the only thing Biden cares about. It's just misstep after misstep after misstep politically, like going on Jimmy Kimmel. How in the world do you think that helps you with inflation, people fighting to keep food on their table, the war raging in Ukraine? You got a Supreme Court justice that somebody tried to assassinate, and you go on and crack jokes with Jimmy Kimmel. And my point is, do you think is it politically smart for him just to continue to say, no, fight it out, Ukrainians, fight to the last drop of your blood. None of us, our blood's going to be shed, but you go fight to the last drop of your blood. Is that smart politically?
Oh, probably not. Going on Kimmel, he probably doesn't care. Not a big deal for him to worry about all these other things. But we've talked a number of times, and Laura hit it right on the head. There's other folks pushing the buttons here that are making way, way, way too much money on this thing. So
what geniuses are telling the political geniuses, go, you know what? Here's where you should go. Don't go to Omaha, Nebraska. Don't go into places where the inflation is really being hit hard. Don't go, call for peace in Ukraine. Don't secure the border. Don't put a crime bill forward that needs to go on Jimmy Kimmel and tell people that if the Supreme Court justices overturn Roe versus Wade, there's going to be a mini revolution. That's from the mouth of the great uniter. Laura, go ahead. Go ahead, Laura.
Pardon. I would just like to ask you, if you could, I'd like you to just close your eyes and think for a moment over the past 47 years.
Well, I can close my eyes, but I can't think.
In the name
May not wake up.
of all that is holy, has Joe Biden ever, ever, ever made a politically savvy or smart move?
Laura? And you know what my answer is going to be? Yeah, you know what? I wish I could point to one. You know why? Selfishly. No, selfishly, I wish I do, because you know what? I kind of pride I kind of pride myself in saying, look, this guy did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. He's horrible, but he did this okay. So that's how we got to think. We got to say, okay, Joe, you did a good job over here. I did that with Clinton, with Bush. I want to find something. But your answer to your question is absolutely not, and it's astonishing to me. How can you be wrong your whole freaking life?
You know why? I told you.
I tried, but I couldn't do it.
So he ran for president. Running for president in 2020 was actually a genius move by the Democrats. Reason being, because he had camouflage in the Senate for so long. He could play that political chameleon. He could bounce from being a conservative Democrat to a liberal Democrat to just being bat crap crazy. He had that cover with those other 99 senators.
Right.
And having a campaign on your own, standing on your own 2 feet, front and center, the only way that he was going to win is if we did it behind a mask with 20 people in cars because it was a pandemic and we couldn't let anybody near him. That's why he won. Because if they had him out there with the exposure that every other presidential candidate in the past has had, he would have never, ever made it. Because he cannot.
And how many times?
Absolutely no political identity of his own. Never has, never will.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what he's doing. His only concern is staying in power, being able to be relevant, and making money. That's it. That's all he's good at. And pathologically lying. That's all he's good at because he has no identity whatsoever.
Yeah.
And they knew that he would be a perfect foil for them to be able to manipulate and use. And look what's going on. These ding-dongs are running us into the ground, which is exactly what they planned to do. And he just spuddles along, eating his ice cream.
Bullet Bob, what do you think what Laura just said?
Well, I always love listening to Laura because she makes a whole lot of sense.
She do.
She makes a whole lot of sense. And I think one of the relevant points that she brought out, being a chameleon, look at his campaign. How did he run his campaign?
In the basement.
Exactly. Well, we haven't seen Joe Biden in 15 days, and he's right in the middle of a campaign season, running for the highest office in the land, the free world, and nobody's seen this guy for 2 weeks. That's a tough way to run a campaign, but it draws back to exactly what she said and exactly the type of history that the guy's had, and so that's what you get. And
and Biden always used to say, the buck stops with me. As Laura pointed out, he was in a position, one member of a body. The buck, he's never led anything. Leading a committee is not leading something, being the top dog. And he's never had the buck stop with him. And when the buck did stop with him, he looked at that and went, "What the hell is that?" Well, it's
and why is it stopping here?
It's the buck.
It's
the buck,
stopped on my
Mr. President.
desk.
Well, what's it doing here? It's stopping here. Well, why? I don't know what that is. What do I do with that?
Would have moved out of the way.
And then here's the thing. I said this on the show the other day. Here's the deal. You can pretend to be who you're not. I pretended to be a cop pretty convincingly. And, 20% of the people of Fresno, they voted for me because of my law enforcement experience. I pretended to be
That's
a cop.
pure gold. I'm sorry, but that's pure gold.
I pretended pretty good, but I was not a cop. I couldn't have done.
But we're back to the Tide Pod
I was not the cop. I was not going to be able to respond as a cop. If I was put out there on the beat after I finished a day at work on the set and went out on the beat in Atlanta, I wouldn't have known the first thing what to do, and I would have messed things up, put people in danger, myself and others, because I didn't know how to be a cop. You can pretend to be what you're not, but you can't be what you're not. You're having a president. You're having a person pretending to be a president, but he's not. He can't be what he's not. He doesn't have the skill set to be the president, but he's pretending. And when you pretend, as you said, you have nothing to really come from. You're just living in this fantasy world by things to come from. I mean, principles of which you lead. And then you're left for.
He's a figurehead.
Exactly. Then what happens when things don't go well? You look at your staff and blame them. Why is my approval rating at 36%?
Putin.
It's a Putin price hike. And they send him out with these little slogans because you have, as Thomas Sowell said, Thomas Sowell, wise man, said, crisis throughout history in the United States. Isn't it kind of amusing? Do you ever wonder why at the center of almost all of those crises, you find someone with a Harvard graduate at the center of it? You found it during Vietnam with the McNamara whiz kids that said, "Oh, just stick it out." They were advising the Secretary of Defense. You signed these people that were telling the economists that the housing bubble wasn't going to burst at the same time. All these experts. Well, he's got his folks around him that's never spent one day in the real world. They've been raised in academics, and he's just doing what they tell him to do.
Well, my mother thought she was a doctor, and she diagnosed herself with an ear infection. So she prescribed herself some medication that my dad had taken that was left over, and she ended up having an allergic reaction. And the doctor informed her, "Ma'am, you're not a doctor. Please stop acting like one." We need to do that with Joe Biden.
Yep. And I think the Democrats are going to do that before. I don't think he's going to make it to the midterms. I think they're going to have a phony health issue come up, or maybe a real one. He's going to step aside. I still stand by that. Guillermo thinks I'm crazy. Guillermo thinks I'm crazy on that, but I still don't think he's going to make it. They can't afford.
He might the midterms. He might make it. I don't think he's going to run in 2024. And the main reason I don't. Well, I mean, there's a host of them, but I can't say them on the radio. But anyway,
all of it. Let me ask you something though. All of these congressmen and senators that are fighting for their life here coming up, Biden's going to want to come and help them. You think they want him to come campaign for them? That's why I don't think he'll make it.
I think that they had in their heads, again, listening to the Tide Pod people, they thought, "Oh, this is going to go great. We can, he's very malleable. We can do whatever we want with him. And everything's going to go our way and everything's going to be wonderful." And then Joe Manchin threw a big monkey wrench in that. So now they're all scrambling, trying to figure out. And Joe's really not, he thinks he's president. So he's going to say things and he's going to do dumb things. And they can't stop him anymore because they can't keep him on lockdown. And I think that they're all in full panic mode.
Oh, I expect him to come out any day and say,
Grandpa gets loose and he doesn't have his, GPS with him, that's kind of what's happened.
I expect any day for him to come out and give a speech and say, ask not what your country can do. You ask what you can, the thing that John Kennedy said.
Expecting him to come wandering out in the Rose Garden with no pants on one day.
eating some ice cream. Oh, we're piling on now.
Exactly.
We're piling on old Joe. Sloppy Joe ain't going to do that. They won't let him. Well, maybe they will. They listen. They are trying to discard that baggage, Bobby. What do you think, Bullet Bob? They're trying to they just don't know how to get rid of that.
Not quite sure what to do with that.
They're looking to get rid of him left and right. They just don't know how.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Not quite sure where to go.
They want him gone.
Yeah.
I'm
sure they're
like that 5-day-old spaghetti that was left out there. They wanted
that ex-boyfriend that just won't go away.
Yeah. Well, it's true.
Yeah.
They're sitting back there, the Democrats going, my gosh, what have we done? How are we going to, it's going to take us several years to come back from this. Well, let's just talk about Trump more, like you said, Laura.
Yeah.
But they got to know.
I guarantee you right now, every one of them is on antidepressants.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're all on
He's like,
and antidepressants, and Nancy Pelosi
and Tide
is
Pods.
probably boxed in by the case.
He's political COVID. He is.
Nancy Pelosi.
Everywhere he goes, he's spread here. They don't want to touch him. They don't want to be around him.
Political COVID.
I mean,
I will tell you one thing I'm really looking forward to, and I really hope they televise it, is when Nancy Pelosi has to hand that gavel over, because I'm telling you right now, Kevin McCarthy better wear a bulletproof vest, because that woman will rip his pancreas out with her teeth before she hands over that gavel.
Just like he did the president's speech. She did.
She's going to wrestle that. They're going to have to put a falcon hood over that woman and roll her up in a carpet and take her out.
You know
of
what?
there.
She does scare me.
Oh, she's...
If I was in office now, I tread carefully around.
Because it's going to be good. She's going to fight him. I'm telling you. She's crazy.
And I don't know if Kevin could win that. I don't
know either. That's why he better start bulking up, man. He needs to really prepare.
Well, he can't hit her. Well, it's a gender neutral world. I mean, it wouldn't be. She just say, "No, I'm not calling for violence against Nancy Pelosi." Come on.
No.
I want a peaceful transition of power when it happens here in November. Peaceful transition. Folks, Bullet Bob, Laura, thank you so much. We hear that music. It's time to go. Free for All Friday. Gosh, I just appreciate y'all so much. Thank you for tuning in. Our little Autry's Army's growing by the day. And we just don't get the comers and the dabblers there. We get comers and stayers building this whole thing on brick, strong to withstand the storms of life. Remember, absolutely. God bless you. Just do your best. Let God do the rest. And that's all he expects of you. So that's all we should expect of ourselves. Love y'all. Bye-bye now. Did you see what happened to Adam?
Oh, really? No.
Come on, hit him.
Hearing him explain that had to be hilarious. Well, I hope I was able to add something to the. I just enjoyed listening. So much good.